What's up, you guys? So, I'm going to share with you a lesson I learned from losing my grandmother last month as a life insurance agent. So, get right into it. Last month, my grandmother at 75 years old passed away, and she was an amazing human being. I love her very much, and she supported what I do for work as a life insurance agent, though she never had life insurance. She had life insurance on my uncle. I believe she had life insurance on my mom. I actually don't know, which is a part of the many things that I learned throughout this process. But one of the lessons that this process taught me, and there were many, um, the first one I want to share is about legacy. So, as I said, my grandmother, she supported and believed in life insurance, but she didn't have any herself. And when I started in this industry, she was like, okay, cool. I really didn't have anything to say about it. But she didn't want life insurance herself. And it was after a couple years of me talking to her about it here and there. We've been through some stuff as a family when it comes to having insurance before, but she still never wanted it. And at one moment, she finally was like, okay, how much would it cost me? And I remember that was about 2 years ago. I had that conversation with her about how much would it cost for her to get coverage. And that was where I learned my grandmother had a lot of health concerns that we did not know about because she just didn't talk about them. And it was going to cost her like $1,000 a month for coverage. And I remember just like looking at that, factoring in the things that she had mentioned would be found in her medical record, and then seeing that quote come up. And I said, in good consciousness, I could not do that. Because the thing is, my grandmother isn't terrible with money. So she had money saved. She had enough saved to like have a funeral, which I'll talk about in another video. So I couldn't, in my right mind, get her to get a policy, knowing that when it comes to that small piece, she's basically self-insured. The small piece of burying her. And so she never got a bump. My grandmother passed away. She never had life insurance. And that got me thinking about legacy. What do you leave behind? My grandmother was very reasonable with money. Like, she never really had too much, but she was never really hurting for anything. She lived a very, very simple life. My grandmother worked for over 20 years as a nurse in New York, in Bronx, New York. She's just very, very simple about life. And so even though when she passed away, there wasn't, we have no idea, actually. Like, we just have no idea what was left behind. We know that debt is not what was left behind, which is what many people do leave behind, is debt. And no resources, which, like I said, I'll talk about in a different video. And so it made me aware that there are two kinds of legacies you can leave behind. And I think a wise person will leave behind both. The first is the financial legacy you leave behind, and the second is the character legacy you leave behind. For my grandmother's funeral, I was tasked with the responsibility of writing her obituary. Now, when I had to do this, I was like, so I don't really know much about my grandmother's early life. I don't know if I'm the person to do this. Even though there was a point a couple months ago where I called her and I was like, Grandma, how did you get here? I was just curious because I was like, how did you end up in New York? How did you end up in the United States? Like, what transpired for you to end up here? And when I really asked her, she was like, she came here to study. And I'm like, well, how did you get citizenship? She's like, bro, I don't remember. She could not remember. She was like, I don't really know. Like, something was happening and amnesty, something, I don't know. And I'm a hate person. Like, and I remember just laughing with her on the phone about it. Like, she don't know, but she knows that she legally has she had the right to live here and to work here and to build the life that she built here. She was known as someone that could help other people get their papers here. At least that's how I understood. She would regularly say, like, I filed for this person, I helped file for this person. They were always family, or related to family. And she knew how to help people in that way. And I remember thinking about how would I describe my grandmother when I had to write her obituary. And in thinking about that, I had to say, like, okay, well, I know what I know about my grandmother. And one thing I know is that she loves to laugh. She likes to give and she likes to laugh. I don't really know much else about her. And that sounds like a failure. Like, I'm her granddaughter. Like, why can't I say more about her? And it wasn't until her funeral that's pretty much what everyone had to say about her. My grandmother gave great advice. She loved to laugh. And she likes to help people. That's literally who she was. And so, in spite of working in life insurance and knowing the importance of leaving behind a financial legacy, there are other legacies that are important. And one of those is your character. How will you be remembered when you're gone? And I can say with confidence, that is something I take great joy and pride in, is that I have a grandmother who, when I look back, my worst memories of her are of being a kid and her telling me to eat all the food on my plate and making me like clean in between the radiators. My grandmother was overall a pretty joyful person, would go out of her way to help people, to the point that it was like, Grandma, really? Do you really need to do this? And she just loved to laugh. And so I encourage you, if you're someone who is building a legacy, there is a financial component that can't be ignored. Stay tuned for the episode reel I'll make about self-insurance. That is a lesson that going through this process with my grandmother taught me. I thought I understood what that meant, and I think I understand it better now because of her. There's a financial piece of your legacy, but there's also a character piece of your legacy that cannot be ignored, because the way you conduct yourself is definitely something that sticks with people. And so I challenge you, how do you want to be remembered? Thank y'all for listening. If you don't have life insurance, get some life insurance. Don't wait until it's too late and it's too expensive. And if you aren't developing your character, you should probably start. Peace.